Hey, we're on season 21 and the theme is strange and unusual. When I'm planning a season, I make a list of all the cases that would fit in the theme and I start looking up the cases to see how much information is out there about them. Obviously, there are cases that have books and documentaries and endless media coverage. Then there are cases that have enough info to make a shorter episode, which I prefer to be at least 10 to 15 minutes. But there are still cases that I look up that there's basically a blurb, a couple of paragraphs between a few different sources that can make a 2-minute video. So it finally hit me that I could use those stories to make a list of cases that match the season. I know, it only took 21 seasons. So without further ado, here are 5 strange and unusual murders. 21-year-old Sayomara Robles had been with her boyfriend, 23-year-old Raymond Echevarria, for at least 5 years. The couple had a 5-year-old son and a 14-month-old daughter. Obviously, doing the math, it meant they had their older child when she was 16 and he was 18. Sayomara had broken up with them, but he clearly hadn't been taking it well. Court records showed that a restraining order had been issued on January 8, 2007, after Sayomara alleged that Raymond had kidnapped her at knife point. The restraining order was lifted on January 16th and Raymond was due in court on April 17th. About a month before he was set to appear in court on kidnapping charges, he attacked Sayomara at her place of employment. Sayomara worked as a receptionist at a psychiatric clinic in Boston, Massachusetts, and on March 16th, she had stopped to have lunch with her son and another woman who worked in the building. After lunch, the women and the boy took a walk, and when they returned to the building, Raymond arrived and argued with Sayomara just outside of the elevators. Witnesses said they eventually heard screaming, and they first thought Sayomara had gotten stuck in the elevator and was panicking. They pressed buttons but couldn't get the elevators to open, so they called the fire department. While an attorney who had an office in the building was on the phone with the fire department, he heard an explosion. It turned out that Raymond had dragged Sayomara into the elevator where he lit the fumes of a 2-gallon gas can on fire. After a minute, the gas can ignited, causing the elevator to blow up. The only good news was that he had not taken their son into the elevator with them. The boy suffered minor injuries from being near the elevator when it blew up. When the fire department got to the elevator, they found the charred remains of both Raymond and Sayomara. They also recovered the gas can, the lighter, and the knife. Both of their children were placed with relatives. 21-year-old John Hutcherson didn't set out to kill someone on the evening of August 28, 2004. Unfortunately, there are some people who aren't intending to be murderers. They just end up behaving so recklessly that they end up one, and John is a perfect example. 23-year-old Francis Brom had been friends with John since high school. They had grown up incredibly close, and each of their parents said the other was like a part of their family. On August 28th, the two young men were out drinking, like they had done many times before. Like young adults are oft to do, they drank a large quantity of alcohol before heading home. That night, though, it seemed that they may have drank a little more than they usually did. While John was behind the wheel, severely intoxicated, Francis felt his mouth water and his throat tickle, and he knew he was about to puke. So as to not make a mess in his buddy's car, he hung his head out of the window and proceeded to hurl. Being drunk meant that John did not have the ability to properly control his truck, and he would later recall swerving to avoid an oncoming vehicle. That overcorrection caused him to sideswipe a support wire from a telephone pole, which sheared off the side view mirror on his truck. It also cut off Francis's head. As evidence of just how intoxicated John was, he never noticed that his best friend had been killed in an instant, and he continued driving home. Once there, he got out of his truck, went into his house, and went to sleep. The following morning, a neighbor on a walk with his daughter saw the headless body still hanging out of the passenger side window of the truck, and they called the police. When they arrived, John was still asleep and he had no idea what had happened the night before. He was charged with DUI, failure to stop, and first-degree vehicular homicide. Francis's parents asked the judge for leniency, and John Hutcherson was sentenced to 5 years in prison. You ever found that you had to beat your son to death in order to release the snake that's possessed him? I didn't think so, but that was the position 53-year-old Katsumi Nagaya found himself in January of 2013. The man, who lived in Okazaki City, Japan, had a 23-year-old son named Takuya Nagaya. When the son arrived at his parents' house on January 17th, he began acting strange, which scared the Nagayas. Then Takuya told his parents that he was a snake. Katsumi started fighting with his son, initially beating and biting him. The attacks continued over the course of 24 hours as Katsumi allegedly attempted to rid his son's body of the snake that he believed was possessing it. Eventually, the beatings became too much and Takuya went limp before being rushed to the hospital, where he died from his injuries. Katsumi was arrested, but the outcome of his criminal case is not known. Most people won't recognize the name Caleb McGilvery, but they might recognize the name Kai the Hitchhiker. On February 1st, 2013, a hitchhiker named Caleb McGilvery was riding in a car with a driver named Jet Simmons McBride when the car crashed into a utility truck in Fresno, California, injuring the workers. Caleb gained fame when the local news showed up and interviewed him. He recounted that he had taken a ride from Jet, who claimed he was Jesus Christ and was in the process of telling him how he had sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl when the crash happened. He immediately got out of the car to render aid to the utility workers, but when Jet exited the vehicle, he started attacking a bystander, so Caleb explained that he ended up grabbing a hatchet and hitting Jet on the back of the head with it repeatedly. Jet was not killed, and Caleb was interviewed by the police before being released. Jet was arrested, but Caleb went on to have a sudden 15 minutes of fame, even appearing on Jimmy Kimmel Live. On May 16th, just 3.5 months later, Caleb was arrested in New Jersey for the murder of an attorney named Joseph Gelfi. Caleb claimed that Joseph offered him a place to stay, then drugged and sexually assaulted him. But the authorities claimed the sex was consensual and Caleb committed the murder for some other reason. During his trial, he was combative and was almost thrown out of the courtroom. A jury found him guilty and he was sentenced to 57 years in prison with parole eligibility after 48 years. It's been a long time since I listened to the band REM, but if you throw on a best of album, you're likely to hear one of their singles titled What's the Frequency, Kenneth? The song was released in 1994 and it caused a number of people to ask, what the hell does that mean? The answer to that question starts in 1986 when CBS News anchor Dan Rather was mugged by two men on the streets of Manhattan. As the attack happened, one of the men repeatedly asked him, quote, "Kenneth, what's the frequency?" Dan had no idea what the man was referring to, and eventually the men fled the area. Some people thought Dan had made the story up, but a doorman at a nearby building witnessed the whole thing and ran to the newscaster's aid after the attack. The song was written and released in 1994, and REM lead singer Michael Stipe said that the lyrics to the song are not about the attack. The strangest part was that the song was released September 5th, 1994, so it's not possible that the band knew what happened in relation to that mugging just days prior. On August 31st, 1994, a man named William Tager attempted to get into the NBC studios where the Today Show was filmed. A technician for the company named Campbell Montgomery stopped William from entering the building, so William shot and killed him. After he was arrested, William told the authorities that he wanted to get into the studio so he could find out what frequency they were using to send messages into his head. During the investigation into the murder, it's claimed that authorities confirmed that William was one of the two men who attacked Dan Rather in 1986, but that information was never officially released. William Tager was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 15 to 25 years in prison. He was released on parole in 2010. There's no shortage of strange and unusual cases, and unfortunately, a lot of them are short on detail, but at least I can give you the little bit of info I could find on them. Thanks so much for letting me tell you this story. If you're a fan of true crime, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. You can also hit like or leave a comment. If you'd like to support the show, check out our merchandise at thisismonsters.com. The link is in the description. Thanks again, and be safe.